Hello folks, it's Mr. Majewski here, and I thought rather than type out the instructions for this assignment, I'd go ahead and just do a quick video to kind of preview Google Earth, although everybody's pretty familiar with that by now, and to preview what I expect of you out of this assignment. So let's get right into it. So we're going to use Google Earth here to identify the different types of settlements that we just learned about in the previous presentation. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to click on the link for Google Earth, and we're going to have it take us there, and that'll take a little moment to load. Obviously, I think Google Earth is one of the most powerful geographic tools we have, right? And if you are not on there and have not traveled around on there, oh man, you're missing out on a lot. But obviously, you can zoom in and out in any location, right, on Earth's surface with incredible detail, as you can see. And of course, you can search for locations. You can do a lot on this, actually. The presentations you can do on this are incredible. Anyways, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be searching for different examples of the three types of settlement patterns that you learned about in the presentation. So you're going to be looking for one example somewhere in North America, specifically within the United States and Canada, of a clustered rural settlement. You're going to look for an example of a linear rural settlement, and then you're going to look for an example of a dispersed rural settlement or dispersed rural settlements. Sometimes, if they're dispersed enough, you might have to give a couple of town names there to reflect kind of the dispersed pattern that you are seeing. So in this assignment, what you're going to do is find an example of each of these. Then you're going to go ahead and take a screenshot of it and let me know where that location is, what the name of it is, what state or province it's in. And then you're going to attach that screenshot into the assignment itself. So first, if you notice, it's going to ask us to find an example of a clustered rural settlement somewhere in the United States or Canada, and to include the name of it like I mentioned. So I'm going to give you an example of one or even maybe two of these right now. So what we are going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type in a location. It's an example of a clustered rural settlement. So I'm going to type in one that I've already pre-located. It is Nisland, South Dakota, population of 206. Seems like a real rip-roaring place, right? And there it is, all right? And I'm calling this a clustered rural settlement. I think you would agree. As you can see, when we zoom out, right, we are surrounded in all directions by farmland. We've got the river there nearby. But as you can see, we are really a small rural settlement, and we're very clustered together. And I thought this was a good example. I'm going to go ahead and give you another example as well, also in South Dakota, not too far away, actually, Vail. And this is, in my opinion, another great example of a clustered rural settlement right down the road. So you can see what we have here is a lot of these. And as you can see, as we zoom in, right, yeah, that's a wonderful clustered rural settlement there, right? Very small, a couple hundred people. But what I want you to do now is obviously do the same. Then, of course, when you find one, you're just going to go ahead, give me the name and the state or province it's located in, and then go ahead and add a screenshot in there as well. Okay, so that's clustered rural. You're also going to be doing the same for the linear rural settlement and also the dispersed rural settlement. So I do want to give you an example of each. So staying in South Dakota, but I'm going to move us to Union Center because I think that's a pretty good example of a linear rural settlement. As you can see, right, very rural, small community, all clustered around the main road, right? We'll back it up a little bit, right? We'll zoom out. As you can see, yeah, everything is really just staggered along the one main throughway. But this is going to be like one of those one stoplight towns, right? Where before you know it, you're already through it. So great example of a linear rural settlement. Obviously, dispersed rural settlements you're going to find all over the Midwestern United States and Canada. But I'll give you an example of one of those as well. So I'm just going to take us to western Kansas, right? And I'm going to kind of zoom in And it should not be hard for me. Look at that. Look at all the agricultural pattern. It's all farmland out here in the Midwestern United States. And it shouldn't be hard to really be honest with you, be able to identify a few smaller communities that are located. And you'll be able to identify and this is what you're going to need to do probably for all of them, but go ahead and scroll around until you find a community that you think fits. And oftentimes it makes sense to follow waterways as well, because waterways oftentimes lead to, more habitation, I guess you would say. So here we go, right? We can see a few farms, right, that are spread out here. And as we can see, right, it's definitely a dispersed rural settlement. I'm going to assume if we scroll over, yep, we have a few other farms here as well. So you're noticing a very dispersed, spread out pattern, right? Not a lot of clustering of communities. We got some large farms, right, in some locations. So here we go, right? This is really great examples of dispersed. Now, in this instance, since we don't really have a town name because we're looking at isolated farms spread out, I think what I would do is simply just zoom out, spread outward and say, you know what, Western Kansas, because that's where we are, or Kansas near McCracken is how I would describe this. All right. And then I would go ahead and take a screenshot of the up close of some of that dispersed rural settlement. I would go ahead and I would put it in the third category down there. All right. So that's it. All right. That's all I'm going to ask you to do here. Have some fun with Google Earth, right? Kind of scroll around, find a great example of each of these.